Hello again, rail fans. Today we're going rail fanning right here in my own backyard on the CSX Tampa and Lakeland terminals. Plus, we'll take a little venture up on the main line out there. This will hopefully give you an idea of how I spend a day chasing down trains here at home. Then we'll stop in for a little lunch. Now, our first stop is getting a viewer question answered, a question about reflectors. I made an early start on this April mid-morning. It's one of the best parts of the year in Central Florida. Temps are still cool, but the mornings are a little warmer than in midwinter. The low humidity and clear skies make it nearly perfect. I hear train M441 coming into Tampa on the S line, so I beat it to the north end of Yeoman Yard, where I know he'll pass. When I get to the 78th Street entrance, 441's engines have already gone by, but the darkness reminds me of a question I've gotten from several subscribers lately. What are those vertical yellow reflectors on the sides of freight cars for? M441 creeping over this crossing illustrates it perfectly. The vertical reflectors are intended to illuminate freight cars passing over unprotected crossings at night. When a driver approaches a crossing that has no flashing lights or gates, at least the car's headlights will hit these yellow reflectors and hopefully let Mr. Driver know there's a train ahead on that crossing. According to FRA rules, stripes on both ends are to be 36 inches tall. Those inside are to be 18 inches and are placed 10 feet apart. The stripes can also be white, but I've never seen any white ones. On cars like flat cars, gondolas, center beams, and intermodals, the reflectors can be placed horizontally on the side sills. Amtrak has similar dark crossing protection in a linear red stripe along the bottom sill of each car. I saddle back up and start heading eastward, past the Florida State Fairgrounds, where a small circus is currently playing. By now I can hear the CSX JA dispatcher talking to trains on the through routes out there, the A line and the SX line. M452 approaching Auburndale is wanting to know what his next few moves will be.
Yes, sir. Who we here waiting for something else?
Yeah, there's 793. He's finally coming around the connection. So you're waiting on one, then you go to 10th Street, and I think the outbound's on duty here in about 10-15 minutes.
As the sun comes up, I'm heading eastward toward Lakeland in hopes of meeting him. The best place I can think of is the same place I've been going for years, Lakeland Junction. Here's where the first few hundred feet of the Vitus subdivision peels off of the A-line. The rising sun is hitting things just right, already blasting the Florida Children's Museum over there at Bonnet Springs Park. I know the train will have perfect side light on it when it finally arrives, which would be about 40 minutes later, enough time for me to eat a sausage biscuit from Hardee's and finish my coffee. And by now, there was something else on the radar.
CSX Detector Milepost 836.5, track main 1.
Reception on the radio was especially good this morning. That's the new Vitus Defect detector at the AR 836.3 in a straight line 19.4 miles north of where I sit. So that's another train coming at us. The radio also told me what I just missed.
CSX Equipment Defect Detector Milepost 825.5. No defects. No defects. Total axle 1052. End of transmission.
1,052 axles and a local. Now that's a rock train shuttle out of Winston Yard there in Lakeland all the way down to Miami. And I'm sorry I missed him. 0821 and round the corner comes CSX M452. As many of you know by now, M452 is daily manifest freight out of Miami's Hialeah Yard for Waycross, Georgia. A mostly empty train, he does have a decent cut of hoppers on the head end loaded with South Florida lime rock. He sometimes stops at Lakeland to change crews and or work at Winston Yard, but there's no work for him today. When that happens, they set the crew change for out here on the main line. 10th Street is the preferred spot. This allows vehicle access to the locomotives, and if the train is not too long, he can sit here for hours without blocking any crossings. 452 is 8,300 feet today, so he fits between the switches. It took me a minute to realize that we're also meeting another train here. That one we heard pass the DD about 30 minutes ago at Vitus. L743 out of Brown Sand, Georgia. 743 appears as it crosses over Interstate 4, comes down across Fairbanks Road, and swings into the 10th Street siding.
TL 743 trail 645 million price million 10th Street main side southbound.
This southbound rock train is led by a 28-year-old AC 4400 CW locomotive, still in original paint. If I understand correctly, this is one of the engines that will get a second life in CSX's modernization program with Wabtec.
CSX Equipment Defect Detector Milepost 847.7. No defects. No defects. Total axle 1052. End of transmission.
This is the DD way down in Frostproof, reporting on that giant L793 train that I missed earlier.
Y'all look good, Mark?
I'm still looking at you.
After L743 clears, the new crew and the JA dispatcher hold an on-air job briefing.
CSX, this is JA Dispatcher Jacksonville, answering over.
M45214, over.
All right, 452. You guys ready for a job briefing and ready to go?
Yes, sir. Here it comes. You got Williams and Toman, dispatcher bulletin 20186. Lead motor's a 7564. It's got 3,400 gallons. The second motor's a 7232, 2,780 gallons. Right now we've got 31 loads, 92 empties, 8,892 tons, 8,295 feet. PTC seems to be working, TO seems to be working, and we do have to work at Wildwood. We got to set some cars off there. Well, we're ready now. Bola.
All right, I got all that okay to leave from where you stand, and got to set some cars off at Wildwood. Okay, here we go.
Okay, thank you now. Bye.
Then it's a clear signal to go. 452's new engineer slowly throttles it up until all the slack comes out of his train. The 7564 is what those old AC 4400 CWs look like after the modernization treatment. The new paint job and new logo look really sharp. Lots of efficiency improvements under the hood, too. Nice job, CSX and Wabtec. The M452 had not yet cleared 10th Street when I heard another job trying to come out of Winston Yard.
772. 772. Ready to depart. Make our way towards Davenport.
All right, signal's coming to you. I'll fill first there. Here we go, guys.
Thank you.
I left there and went west on US 92, turning south on Wabash Avenue. That's where I'd catch the 772.
772, over.
All right, 772, go ahead. Over.
I think we want to head into the siding in Auburndale, drop the train. I got my Cantex on the bottom. We'll run around it, come back in the south end and grab my Cantex from the siding, go work Auburndale back on the main there, in between the switches. And we'll talk to you when we're ready to get back on the train. Over.
All right, so the first thing you want to do is go into the siding at Auburndale and run around it?
That's exactly right, over.
This is another local train out of Winston Yard. L772 runs out to Davenport and the sand mine there. Plus, he switches a couple of industries in downtown Auburndale. Here at Wabash Avenue, I'm at the A853 Milepost. And just as quickly, another train entered the picture at Lakeland.
5713 on the CSX B844. Approach limited in that distance to 10th Street. Single main southbound now.
0946, and here's train M457. He originates at Waycross with traffic for Taft Yard in Orlando. ES44AC and an ES44AH, pulling a cut of small hoppers with sand or cement, and then 11 refrigerated boxcars. I'm wondering if any of these are carrying McDonald's frozen French fries. I read recently that the Orlando area McDonald's sell a ridiculous amount of French fries every day. Behind the reefers, a center beam with building materials, then 3 double-door boxcars. Then more building materials on center beam flats. As you can guess, Florida, especially Central Florida, is seeing an explosion of building right now, which is good for the railroad business. Not so good for driving and traffic. Bringing up the rear, a long cut of loaded auto racks. After M457, I head out of town to see what else I could find. 33 miles north of Lakeland on the S-Line is Luchi Siding. This is one of the only S-Line passing tracks that was not lengthened to at least 10,000 feet in the improvements of the 1990s. With the giant Dade City siding just a couple of miles to the south, I guess this one didn't have to be very big, so it remains at 7,423 feet. And last fall, Luchi got a little bit shorter. CSX decided it was not to be used as a pass track anymore, so they removed the south end switch and about 100 feet of track. The remaining 7,300 feet of siding is still there, possibly because there's a customer track that breaks out of the siding on the north end, and the remnant of the siding can still be used for switching. Luchi is, or was, a signaled siding too, which means there was a current running through the rails. So signal people had to disconnect all that. They didn't get everything, though. The siding signal for South End Luchi is still burning and ready to signal a train out of it, should that missing piece of track ever come back. The customer at Luchi used to be Cal-Maine Foods, a major egg producer in the area. That regularly got big trains of grain hoppers with lots of corn. After a spring rainstorm a few nights before, some of that corn that leaked out of the hopper doors is sprouting. I moved on up the line and made it to Wildwood in time to see M453 coming south. South Florida Railfan and a friend of the channel, Breland Terry, came rolling up while I was here. He just happened to be in Wildwood on business. After 453, we said our farewells and I got back on the road northward. Just north of the Oxford Defect detector, where the track gets close to the road, one of the mileposts caught my eye. This is the S755. Not a typical Seaboard Airline milepost. The concrete markers they did have were shaped like headstones. These are square and have a little pitched roof on the top. For a long time, I believed these were L&N mile markers that somehow made their way onto the seaboard. L&N had these all over, and many are still in service. But when checking these against the CSX timetable, something else showed up. The bold lines in between the 755 and the 756 indicate a measured mile and a place for an engineer to calibrate his speedometer, using his watch to measure the time it takes to travel between these two mileposts, and then comparing that number with the speed chart in the back of most railroad timetables. The engineer can verify if the locomotive's speedometer is reading correctly. A similar measured mile also exists on the Bainbridge subdivision at Tallahassee, also ex-Seaboard Airline territory, and what do you know? The milepost right there at GF&A Junction also is square with a little pitched roof. It's my opinion that the SAL used these type mileposts to indicate a measured mile on the main line. Back here at Oxford, there's no way for me to know if engineers on the Orange Blossom Special used these two markers to see if they were really going 98 miles an hour, but it's fun to think about it. While this looks like a day packed with action non-stop, there were big periods of nothing happening, absolutely nothing. So during one of those, I left the track for lunch, headed over to Plant City to a place I'd heard about for years, but had never tried. It's a place with a dirt parking lot and lots of pickup trucks, and I mean lots of them. Smokin' Ace's Steakhouse. The name threw me off for a long time, but they seem to be just as big on barbecue as they are on steaks. I believe a pulled pork sandwich will tell you quicker than anything what kind of barbecue place it is. So that's what I got, with a side of sweet coleslaw, and my kind of coleslaw, sweet, not vinegary. But I cannot say enough good about the sandwich. Delicious pulled pork with some crispy ends in there and just enough sauce on a fresh toasted brioche bun. With the awesome home-brewed not-from-a-mix iced tea, it was $13.35 out the door. And that ain't bad for a decent lunch these days. While in Wildwood, I ran into Anthony Celeste. He's a major contributor to the Facebook page Florida Railfans. Anthony is the authority on railfanning the Wildwood-Ocala segment of the S-Line, and I'm really glad I got to finally meet him. I got several new signs for the fence, but none of them are up yet. I do have to do a little rearranging to fit them all in. I've got two new large ones that I cannot wait to show you, and we'll do that next time. But today, I want to show you this. This is from Logan Goins out of Brookville, Ohio. Now, he's got a craft shop, and he sells some of his stuff on Etsy. He's got a page there on Etsy. It's called LKG Craft Shop. So search Etsy.com for LKG Craft Shop. Now, Logan obviously knew that I am a huge fan of Marion, Ohio. I think it's an awesome place for rail fanning, and the history and the layout of the place, I just love it. So he made this authentic. Well, I say it's authentic. It's made out of wood, but it looks just like the real thing, half scale, of a Pennsylvania Railroad Marion station sign. This is awesome. Now, it won't go on the fence because it's made out of wood, and I don't believe it would hold up super well with our Florida thunderstorms that we have in the summertime. So that's going to go in my office. But I'll show you those other two new signs that I got next week. Can't wait to show you all that stuff. Once again, Logan's Etsy store is located at Etsy.com, LKG Craft Shop. So pay him a visit. He's got some really, really great stuff on there. Now, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done that. Hit the little bell down there and you'll be notified whenever I post a new video. Hit that like button if you would, please. That helps me out a lot. And please, let's make plans again to meet up soon somewhere out there on the high iron. Till we do, this is Danny Harmon, out.